name is Norman Tumuhimbise, and I am the national coordinator of the alternative social movement. Yet again, I have come to brief our generation, but most importantly our country, about specifics in regards to the crossroads that we seem to be at. In particular, I want to talk about the proposed constitutional amendments as per the Deputy Attorney General, who a few hours ago proposed some amendments that are likely to hit our floor of Parliament. The proposed amendments that we are talking about aim at shifting the right of citizens from voting their president, but rather shift the powers to Parliament. And this is what we call parliamentary democracy. Parliamentary democracy can be copied, or rather referred to more or less the very democracy in South Africa. In South Africa, there are no presidential candidates. So you have, for example, NRM, you have, say, DP, you say ANT, say NUP. All of these don't front a presidential candidate, but rather you depend on a number of MPs that every political party has in Parliament to determine who the president of Uganda becomes. This is the same formula that Uganda had in 1980 elections. That DP did not have a presidential candidate, neither did UPC have one, neither did UPM have. That's why Mr. Museveni at a time contested as a UPM candidate on a parliamentary level. In fact, even if Mr. Museveni had gone through at a time, he would never be president of this country. Even if him and Crispus Chionga as the UPM candidates had become MPs, and even if the elections hadn't been rigged, definitely it's DP's Paul Kawanga Semo Gerere that would be president of the country, because definitely DP would have majority members of Parliament. This is what it means as well. So there are some scenarios and theories for which Mr. Museveni, through his systems, want to amend the constitution. One of the issues that we thought as a movement, as the alternative social movement, is that if we may borrow Justice Kanyahamba's words, Justice Kanyahamba says that Museveni is more or less of his age. So meaning by 2026, Mr. Museveni is going to be in his early 80s, meaning he won't be able to traverse the whole country because of the previous fatigue, the age factor, and most likely his health conditions, which puts him into a dilemma of rather promoting the wife. Why do we think that this move could be so much into pro Janet, not Muhoozi? A brief analysis here. If you look at the previous appointments, you have the Vice President of the Republic of Uganda. I don't even know whether it's Mrs. or Miss Alupo, whatever the name it may be, whatever the title rather. You have Alupo Jessica. Below Alupo, definitely a toothless Alupo, because you saw her sit like a nun when she was next to Salim Saleh, as if to say she simply has a position, but she doesn't have the power, and we all know that is factual. The would-be third most influential person in this country happens to be none other than the premier. The premier under the name of Nabanja. Nabanja is more or less fronted to portray to the public that indeed women or females, definitely, whom in our view could be stooges to support the Janet project than the Muhoozi project. You look at the appointments of the justices, both look at Supreme Court and the Constitutional Court. It's on record that the Constitutional Court justices, 6 of them are females. So even when these bogus amendments come to Parliament and they are passed and citizens run to challenge them in the Constitutional Court, chances are you will not miss it. There will be definitely pro-Janet people, females, 6 of them on standby. On standby in the event that the citizens would want to challenge the amendments in the Constitutional Court. Assuming the Constitutional Court definitely through their bootlickers, and you want to run and make an appeal in the Supreme Court, you will not go wrong. Trust me, a panel of 9 Supreme Court justices, 5 of them are ladies waiting for you if you want to run there for any amendments. But also for any appeal. But also going back to the process through which all these justices are employed. They are appointed on Museveni's goodwill. So definitely, trust me, you will find very few of them that will be pro-citizens the way it was in Mbale. If you all remember when people petitioned Supreme Court, when the people petitioned against the amendments of the presidential age limit and others, we all know what happened. What has changed? Definitely nothing. Look at the appointment of the contested Deputy Chief Justice, who in this very particular period is responsible to select a panel of the Constitutional Court justices to interpret the Constitution in the event that citizens run to the Constitutional Court. Guys, we're in trouble. On the other hand, we all know that this lady who claims to be born again, for some reason, she'll move around portraying herself as one of the most holy than the Pope. So we all know how this, where we are heading. Chances are, because Mr. Museveni knows that the son is as unpopular as anything else, as any government policies and acts, and therefore it could be a diversion that you will have a clique of young people, in our view, young and unobjective, who are not visionary, that we will have one force supporting Muhoozi thing, we'll have another force supporting the Janet thing, we'll have another force supporting, any other person from the same family. So to say, if we do not work hard as a generation and as a nation, chances are that we shall be led, we are likely to be led by Museveni, the father, Janet, the mother, most likely Muhoozi, the son. Trinity. Chances are, if we do not fight hard, the Musevenism, the Musevenists, the Museveniology is likely to stay in this country unless otherwise. Our call, therefore, is to ensure that all the forces of change throw away their divisions and prepare for the worst case scenario. Because trust me, once these amendments are thrown into that in courts, useless parliament, they will pass. Do you know why? Because the opposition has a smaller number of MPs as compared to the NRM MPs. Maybe take you back with how these things begin. At first they begin as jokes. You remember way back around 2017 or thereabout, before 2017, you remember kick age limit out of the Constitution. This then unpopular thing was led by the likes of Donny Wanyama, the likes of Broda Anderson, who would later be awarded as Deputy RCC Nakawa. We cannot rule out the greedy young people in this whole thing. But then, those of us who aren't greedy and who are patriotic, what have we done? They were busy moving the whole country. At first, we thought it was simply a joke before the likes of Magezi carried on the curse of fronting that whole bogus idea at Parliament, and before you know it, it was passed. Deeply inside, to people who were defending it, the lame brains definitely would say, after all, they amended this constitution. Now also a young person can contest for president, so as long as you are 18 and above. Excuse me, how many young people in this country that can afford simply nomination fees for a presidential, for president? Your guess is as good as mine. So this is how these jokes begin, and before you know it, they are all there and they are passed. So time came and that happened. If you look at Parliament itself, between me and you, you know that it's being managed by the Deputy Speaker, definitely, no doubt. Our colleague Jacob Olanya, with due respect, seems to be simply holding a big title with less powers. So this move is intentional. Look at all these key sectors. They will either be a specific tribe, but most importantly, people who fear the lethal, none other than Janet. You know how she nowadays behaves like president? Of late, she summoned the Parliament that it finds her in Korolo for her to brief them about the education and the rest of the things. Her conduct, she's like she's already warming. I am one person who doesn't believe that Muhoozi in this is the immediate successor of Tumuhimbise. At a personal level and as a movement, we try to make wonderful research. Want to believe that if we do not work hard, this family may turn Uganda into a dynasty, and that is going to be the worst curse Uganda can ever have. That you are led by Museveni, the father, Janet the wife, and the son. May you, all of us, do our best to fight the Trinity. And we cannot fight the Trinity unless we go to the public and lecture to them the disadvantages of these new amendments. Because definitely these amendments have nothing to do with promoting democracy, but rather promoting a family rule. Not every family, but rather one family rule. We all know that the president will summon Parliament to State House, the wife will summon Parliament to Kololo, the brother will summon people in Gulu, the son will summon the likes of Balamo and the others, where we all know. Guys, if you are interested in seeing this country change to the best, it's high time we sensitized the public, especially young people, about the ill motives of this orthodox proposal to amend the constitution to allow Parliament to determine who leads the country. That is to say, the constitution is going, the power as is in the constitution, this notion of the power belonging to the people. We all know what Parliament has done in the recent past in regards to very controversial amendments in our constitution. If that's the same Parliament that we would want to entrust with selecting, for lack of another word, the president of this country, we are doomed. Chances are, as we all know, that the NRM constitution was amended NRM constitution was amended, and therefore it is SEC that determines who leads NRM as a party. Previously, before they got issues with Mbabazi, all NRM delegates would convene either in Nambole or any other place and vote their party chairperson. As we all know, the party chairperson is no longer determined, the NRM party chairperson is no longer determined by delegates. This means that Mr. Museveni is likely and he is able to compromise the SEC, Central Executive Committee of NRM, definitely to select, because that can't be an election, to select his wife as a party chairperson. With her age at a time, in the event that she is planned to take over in 2026, she will simply sit home and the NRM parliamentary candidates will go to the field, campaign. NRM gets majority members of parliament, and the one and only Kataha, Janet, will definitely scoop the presidency on a silver platter. Now, one asks, are we again prepared to have another rap from the very family? The question now becomes mine and you, especially to the opposition people. It's high time we hit streets, we hit the population and do civic education about the ill motives of this orthodox proposed amendment, which in our view is coming to Parliament as soon as you can imagine. Our call as a movement, the alternative social movement, is not to take the proposed amendments for simply jokes, but we know that's how Mr. Museveni has always operated. Before you know it, we don't want to be shocked when Janet or even Muhoozi, in the event that things don't work in our way, we don't want to be shocked when one of the two becomes president. Or even any other stooge, by the way. Or even any other stooge. It could be here when it's another stooge being prepared. Which stooge that Mr. Museveni knows is unpopular amongst voters. And that stooge, they must ensure that they prepare a very fertile ground for that stooge. Which stooge can't campaign, which stooge doesn't have any substance, which stooge is not liked by the public. And therefore, that very stooge will simply wait for the presidency on a silver plate. Going back to the forces of change, ask yourselves, how much can you, opposition, campaign front parliamentary candidates that will subsequently become parliamentarians and then have the bigger number of MPs for you to be able to have a president of this country who in particular, as per these amendments, must be a leader of a political party with the majority members of parliament. It's a puzzle for all of us as a generation, but also a puzzle for all of us who believe that Uganda deserves a better leader than Museveni, a better leader than any other person that comes from NRM, because definitely we have all tasted what NRM has for this country, and we also know what the opposition has for this country. But most importantly, young people, we know what we have for this country. And it's high time that the very young people pull up their socks and preach, not simply preach change, but practice change and show preparedness that we can take charge and lead this country. Or else, I am 36, have been led by this nonsensical regime for the period I have been on earth. Imagine if the lethal Janet also takes me for a ride, and then Muhoozi takes me for another ride. Guys, where shall we be? Maybe they would declare Uganda as a kingdom with the chief king, Museveni. Another successor, Janet. Another successor in the queue, Muhoozi. Before you know it, don't you think? When Muhoozi was showing us his son after making, was it 14 or so years, was he putting him in a queue so that we also know that our kids are going to be led by Muhoozi's son? To hell. We said that this is total madness. My call to the opposition, guys, let's not be fooled. You know, it's one thing for Mr. Museveni to come and say, guys, you have for this long said you're tired of a military general to lead you. I hereby therefore bring my wife, she's a civilian. Let us not be doomed, stupid, because that's another trick. As for our dear ladies, don't be doomed. There is no difference between the boyfriend and the girlfriend. The ideology is the same. They share the same bed, they share the same ideology, they share the same reasoning. So for you to say that after all, okay, Museveni will have gone, now we the women through Janet we are in power, excuse me, you'll be in the same suffering the way you have been. As for younger people, you'll be shocked, even if they brought Muhoozi. How different is Muhoozi from the father? We all know how lethal he is. Talk about him. We have heard of late everywhere you talk about his stretch marks on his stomach, that we have issues. You know how they'll pick you up? And there's no big difference amongst the three. So don't be fooled that we shall transit from Mr. Museveni, the civilian, to Janet, Museveni, the military man, then to Janet, the civilian. It's the same rule, the same ideology, the same greed, the same corruption, the same everything. We shall have not changed anything. So every single force out there, NUP, FDC, ANT, the red card people, and so many others, even independent-minded, especially the clergy, religious leaders, we need to preach the gospel of positive and non-violent change. A very wonderful transition, a transition that will definitely make the other family and the people whom at a personal level categorize into the Musevenists, the Musevenism, the Museveniology, to all retire in peace. R.I.P. All of them to retire in peace. You have seen so many debates that move along. Let us not take these amendments for granted. Anything stupid may happen, especially with that parliament, as you see it, whose majority members are NRM. What do you expect of them? We have already a burning issue of the bail, and I can assure you the Attorney General will definitely front and table that amendment with other ingredients therein. We can't miss to have the bail application, rather the bail. We can't fail to have the amendments of making Uganda now shift into the parliamentary democracy, and some others that you may not even know. The question now, what have we done to change this country? As a movement, we wouldn't want to be misquoted. Our analysis isn't in any way against feminism. It's not against any female leaders. It's against the persona in Janet Museveni, whom we believe with no doubt that this orthodox amendment aims at promoting her presidency. Definitely, Uganda has best, brilliant female personalities. But there is no way one could wake up in the morning and appoint those that we all know in those strong offices, with a track record of either corruption, track records of incompetence, track records of anything. Let's go back to that person that we talk about, Janet herself. Look at how she has managed education, in fact mismanaged Ministry of Education. Look at how she mismanaged the Karamoja ministry. Should we remind you when she said that we should pack for our children food, wonderful food from home? How she pledged pads, free pads to a girl child. Is that the female you would want to lead this country? In any case, there are so many other people that qualify and are most suitable to lead this country, not in particular from Museveni and the Kaguta lineage. To hell with such a dynasty. The likes of Kataha, whom the public had deemed strong, you know how her and others have been destroyed, definitely there could be a big motive and strategy to fight those, even amongst NRM, that might have substance, but rather be pushed away. And this is what we call upon citizens to deeply think about. If we do not do much, trust me, the dynasty is no doubt coming on board. If you move into all these offices in town, they'll have the photo of Mr. Museveni, have the photo of the wife, have the photo of the son, promoting a dynasty, which we call upon all of us to push back and fight against any other person to succeed Museveni when that person is coming from the very family. Guys, we must do something for the betterment of this country, or else we are doomed.